I predict the Falcons going 12-4. They will be second in the NFC South. And that is not a slight against the Falcons. I believe in the Falcons. I think the Falcons are one of the 7 or 8 teams that could win the Super Bowl this year. I really, really love their roster. I think here's the most interesting storyline if you're a Falcons fan. Steve Sarkisian is entering his second year as the offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons. Last year, they struggled. I know the Falcons were 8th overall in total offense, but when they got into the red zone, they really, really struggled to put the ball into the end zone. They had to kick a lot of field goals. They had to settle, and they weren't as efficient as they normally are. I think in year 2, the Falcons will be better on offense. They're going to be more efficient. See, situational football, the scoring in the red zone, things like that, comes down to how well do you know each other. And Matt Ryan and Steve Sarkisian have had another year. This is now their second year building their relationship and kind of getting to know each other. That is what situational football often is about. Look, I'm not going to make excuses for Steve Sarkisian. Steve Sarkisian is not Sean McVay. He's not Kyle Shanahan. Steve Sarkisian is not the best of the best when it comes to offensive coordinators, but he's a very capable offensive coordinator with a lot of really good tools. I think he's going to be better this year. Another really interesting storyline to follow for the Falcons is Calvin Ridley. I believe Calvin Ridley could very easily be Rookie of the Year. He's going to start all year. So other guys, Josh Rosen could be Rookie of the Year, but I don't know that he's going to play all year. And so Calvin Ridley has a huge advantage. The other advantage for Calvin Ridley is a wide receiver that was drafted out of Alabama. The benefit Calvin Ridley has is he plays with Julio Jones and Mohamed Sanu. Julio Jones is one of the top 3 wide receivers in the entire NFL. I would say Antonio Brown, Odell Beckham Jr., and Julio Jones. Personally, I would rather have Julio Jones. He's more quiet, keeps to himself, but I understand people that like Odell Beckham Jr. But the benefit of this is for Calvin Ridley, defenses are not going to know where to put their attention. They're going to double team Julio Jones. They're going to guard Mohamed Sanu. They're going to put a guy in the box to stop the run. And what that will do for their young rookie wide receiver Calvin Ridley is Calvin Ridley will be matched up against people who are not as good as him. He'll be matched up by their 3rd or 4th corner or a linebacker. Calvin Ridley's going to be in a position to have a mismatch often, and I think he's going to take advantage. I really loved the Falcons drafting Calvin Ridley, the wide receiver out of Alabama, in the NFL draft. The last thing I want to say about the Falcons, their defense is interesting to me. Remember, head coach Dan Quinn is the former defensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks. He mimics the Seahawks defense. And part of that, what that means to me is my concern for the Falcons defense, I'll say this, is that I think they're going to give up a lot of yards. I don't think they're a great defense. They're good, but they're not great. But what's interesting to me is as the field shrinks, when the Falcons get in the red zone this year, I think the defense could improve. I think the defense could stifle people. They have a lot of big athletes, and I think they could play better. And I think they're going to give up field goals long term, but they're going to limit touchdowns because they're going to tighten up when they get into the red zone. So pay attention to the Falcons' scoring defense. They might give up a lot of yards, but they might give up less points than the yards would indicate. So that's something I'm very curious about. Again, I want to repeat, I think the Falcons will go 12-4. I think they are primed to win a Super Bowl. I'm really excited. If I'm a Falcons fan, I would be excited for my team. 12-4, they're going to easily make it into the wild card spot in the playoffs, and they could potentially win the Super Bowl if they can make a playoff run. Remember, the Saints, I think, are going to have home field advantage in the playoffs. If the Falcons can get to the Saints dome, that's not an advantage for the Saints anymore. The Saints and the Falcons are both teams built to playing indoors, basically. And so if the Falcons can get there, they could very easily take on the Saints and potentially go to the Super Bowl. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Remember, if you want to help Strong Opinion Sports grow, you can share this with your friends on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, whatever it is. Help me grow Strong Opinion Sports by telling your friends about this show. And always remember, you can subscribe to Strong Opinion Sports on iTunes, on SoundCloud, everywhere you can find a podcast, as well as YouTube. My full entire podcast is on YouTube, as well as shorter, more interesting clips like this. So thank you so much. Have a great day, and take care.